Good morning, you're watching Daybreak. I'm your host Katie Wilson, here to take you through the top stories this morning. Let's see what's making the headlines. The US says it's preparing the toughest sanctions ever imposed on Iran, further escalating its economic pressure campaign. Venezuelan and Cuban migrants deported from the US have arrived in Liberia under a new agreement with Washington. European leaders are demanding Israel halt its controversial E1 settlement project. Thanks for joining us this morning. Washington says it's preparing its toughest ever sanctions against Iran, following President Trump's threat of economic warfare. The move comes as oil prices rise and Tehran disputes US claims over shipping through the Strait of Hormuz.
US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says Washington will impose what he described as the toughest sanctions in history on Iran. He says maximum economic pressure could reduce the need for further major military action. Speaking to CNBC on Thursday, Bessent said the measures would complement the US naval blockade imposed on Iran in April. He said details of the sanctions package would be announced at a news conference on Monday. The comments followed President Donald Trump's threat of economic warfare against Iran and countries that provide Tehran with any form of support. Trump defended the policy, saying preventing Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons was the central aim of the operation. Oil prices rose to their highest level in more than 3 weeks after the US warnings, as markets assess the impact of the conflict on Middle Eastern oil supplies. Washington says the measures are intended to weaken Iran's government. Tehran, however, has accused the US of spreading misinformation about shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's state news agency IRNA says traffic through the waterway remains limited and is restricted to routes controlled by Tehran. It also accused Washington of trying to ease pressure on global crude prices and US petrol prices ahead of the midterm elections. Meanwhile, Russia's UN ambassador Vasily Nebenzia says Moscow will not pressure Iran to resume negotiations with Washington. He says Tehran should decide its own course as a sovereign state.
The United States has imposed fresh sanctions on Hezbollah, accusing them of acting on behalf of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The Treasury Department has also sanctioned 10 people it accuses of smuggling cash for Hezbollah. Washington first designated Hezbollah as a foreign terrorist organization back in 1997. The latest measures come as the US threatens tougher economic action against countries supporting Iran. International concern is growing over the impact of settlement expansion on peace efforts as Gaza continues to face a severe humanitarian crisis, with millions remaining in urgent need of shelter and basic aid.
Israel's plans to open tenders for about 1,200 settlement homes in the strategically important E1 area of the occupied West Bank have drawn fresh condemnation from major Western powers. The UK, France, Germany, Italy and Canada called the decision unacceptable and urged Israel to withdraw the plans immediately. The 5 countries said the move could further undermine hopes for a two-state solution. E1 lies east of Jerusalem, and Palestinians and many of Israel's allies have warned that construction there could effectively cut the West Bank in two and isolate East Jerusalem. US Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee has warned Israeli settlers in the occupied West Bank not to take property owned by Palestinian Americans.
And I think if we're going to be true to faith, true to heritage, then you recognize that if you don't own something, you don't take it and you don't desire it. So if someone owns the land and they own their house, then having someone come and take it over and scare the family away from it, that's a violation not just of man's law, that's a violation of God's law, and it should be called out as such.
The United Nations has also warned that the plan poses an existential threat to the territorial continuity of a future Palestinian state. In Gaza, the UN says Palestinian civilians, including children, continue to be killed and injured in Israeli airstrikes. UN spokesperson Stephane Dujarric said the bodies of 50 people, including 19 children, killed more than 2 years ago, were recently recovered from the rubble and buried.
Our colleagues at the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs continue to receive reports of Palestinian civilians in Gaza being killed, being injured, or otherwise impacted by Israeli airstrikes, by shelling and gunfire. This includes children, as one can imagine, given the overcrowded conditions in the Gaza Strip. We continue to call for the protection of civilians and civilian infrastructure. Civilians should never be targeted or used for military purposes.
The UN says recovery work is being slowed by restrictions on machinery and supplies, while 94% of Gaza's 2.1 million people need shelter and basic assistance.
President Trump has reaffirmed his friendly relationship with North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un and criticised South Korea's lack of support over the US campaign in the Strait of Hormuz. Trump said Seoul had refused his request for help in the military campaign, despite relying on the US for around 60% of its oil. Meanwhile, Trump says Kim has responded after he reached out to him. He says he plans to meet the North Korean leader later this year and said the Asian nation held 57 very powerful nuclear weapons. However, Seoul believes Pyongyang has between 80 to 120 warheads. Well, joining us now to discuss all of this is nuclear security analyst Zara Mansour. Thank you for joining us firstly. Now, what message is North Korea trying to send with this latest suspected missile launch?
Actually, North Korea wants direct, bigger concessions from the United States, and this is what we have seen even in the past, in 2018 or in 2019, when there was reduction in the military drills between the United States and South Korea. So it actually wanted some of the bigger concessions right now, and that's what is clearly visible. Even its statements that it does not want to talk about how US and South Korea are trying to reduce their military drills. So it is, it has always wanted something bigger on the table, and unless United States does not provide that, North Korea is really not willing to come over the table.
And why do you think Pyongyang is dismissing President Trump's decision to scale back US-South Korean military exercises?
It is actually dismissing because it's a very DPRK tactic. It actually issues the statements first and then shows interest because of the fact that it does not want to show itself very eager to talk to. So it is just, it wants, something really bigger in its, whenever it comes to telling that it wants something, I'm sorry. I think because North Korea is a kind of state that needs to be deal very perfectly and very calmly, and whenever there is a case of Trump actually treats it in a way that it like it treats Iran. So it is actually a kind of thing DPRK or Kim Jong-un does not tolerates that. So in case it occurs, and it is happening right now, that Seoul is having something reducing these strikes or drills with the United States, that's really not enough or insufficient for DPRK. And we can see it in the 2018 or in 2019 times, when there was a point that both of these states were having DPRK and United States were having diplomatic negotiations at that point, and it was really a point when we were about to see something major in the world, right? But that did not happen, and it was majorly because of the fact that Trump did not offer something fruitful. So right now, this is what we are seeing, that in order to pull North Korea onto the table, that it actually needs something really big.
So do you think reducing these military deals will make any difference to that relationship between the two countries on the Korean Peninsula?
You think that reducing these drills will actually make Kim to give up on its nuclear weapons? No, it would not, because of the fact that it's a kind of state which is really rigid in nature, and the main concern is that its sovereignty. Unless its sovereignty is safeguarded, I do not think that it would ever be able to to ask Trump or to make him it's a kind of really rigid state, or we can say a prior state that does not include any kind of the rules and the regulations. So these drills and the reductions, these drills does not. I do not believe that unless the provocative nature or the character of these drills gets reduced, I don't think that Trump or DPRK would ever be able to go towards something fruitful, or we can see anything major in the world.
What about bringing them to the table, or at least having more direct dialogue? Do you think we're getting closer towards that?
No, we cannot. We can only see that major breakthrough if Trump actually offers something really big. And it is not offering. It is treating North Korea in the same way it is treating Iran. So that's the major thing. And I have a very deep research in it, that how Iran and North Korea have been treated in a very similar way by Trump during his first term in office. It's a second term. So it actually has to, do something related to sanctions relief and other kind of things. So if that happens, I think we can see a major breakthrough in their relationship.
So you mentioned sanctions relief there. What other concessions do you think North Korea are likely going to want before agreeing to restart serious negotiations with Washington?
It actually wants I guess, a clear-cut recognition for its nuclear weapons, because that's what it has clearly highlighted, and it wants a change in the U.S. non-proliferation policy. And we have seen during the first term when Trump was in office, it extended its foreign policy as its non-proliferation policy, and that seriously cannot be a thing. You cannot extend your foreign policy as a non-proliferation policy. So there should be a change in that.
In North Korea's involvement in the war in Ukraine is obviously widely talked about. Do you think that's had an impact on the relationship between Kim Jong-un and Trump?
Sorry?
North Korea's involvement in the war in Ukraine?
Okay, North Korea's involvement in Ukraine. So, there is a debate, several debates in the among the analysts, that North Korea is actually supporting Ukraine, but I don't think that there are actual facts, and North Korea has actually accepted it or recognized it. So these are baseless.
So North Korea has sent troops to the war in Ukraine, and what impact has that had on the relationship between Kim Jong-un and Trump?
It has sent troops at that time, and there were several heated arguments between the Trump and the official statements and all, and that has actually distorted their relationship a bit. But we can definitely see Trump bringing North Korean leader to the table. It is because it cannot ignore it, as DPRK holds nuclear weapons. So it is a major concern for Trump.
Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you very much for breaking that down for us and for joining us on the programme this morning. Now, after the break, we'll discuss the rest of the global stories. Stay with us.
Inside Politics delves deeply into the heart of global issues shaping our world today. Join me for your go-to source of political analysis from across the region and beyond.
Welcome to A News, unfiltered news and analysis from the region and beyond. From Washington to Beijing, Tehran to Kabul, to Tbilisi to Tashkent.
Hello, I'm Jay. That's challenges.
Today is the third.
We're with you 24/7, taking you live
to the front lines of the day's biggest stories. Welcome to Gabala. One important note to fears. I'm here.
Azerbaijan and Armenia.
Hello, we are reporting on the 8th of November.
Reporting from Paris,
Dar es Salaam, Tel Aviv,
Washington,
London,
Moscow,
Kyiv, Berlin,
Rio de Janeiro, Beijing, Bangkok, Tbilisi, Tashkent, Almaty, Kazakhstan, Port Sudan, Tehran, Islamabad, Istanbul,
Kabul, Port Emu.
Welcome back, you're watching Daybreak. Now let's take a look at those global stories. Romania has detected an explosives-laden drone near a major energy project in the Black Sea. The drone was spotted just 100 metres from the Neptune Deep gas project, prompting Romania to scramble F-16 fighter jets. Romania has not identified the drone's origin, but accusations have been directed at Russia over the incident.
Welcome to this day in Europe, where Romania destroyed an explosive-laden marine drone close to one of the EU's most important new energy projects. Romania scrambled 2 F-16 fighter jets after the drone was spotted just 100 meters from the Neptune Deep gas project in the Black Sea. The site lies within Romania's exclusive economic zone, but outside its territorial waters, meaning an attack there would not automatically fall within NATO's collective defense provisions. Defense Minister Radu Miruța says the drone was hit by a fighter jet, then completely destroyed by a ship sent to the area. He later confirmed it was carrying explosives. Now, this is not an isolated incident. Earlier this month, Romanian military divers destroyed 2 other drones drifting near the project. And just days ago, 2 Spanish F-18 fighter jets shot down a drone that entered Romanian airspace, following 3 Russian drones shot down on 3 consecutive days in July. Romania has not identified where the latest drone came from, but Ukraine says it was not theirs, and the Romanian president blames Russia, condemning what he calls an intensification of irresponsible incidents by Moscow. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says the latest incident is part of an escalating campaign of threats. Russia has not commented. The location also matters. Neptune Deep is expected to begin producing gas next year and could make Romania the EU's largest gas producer. Jointly owned by OMV Petrom and state-owned Romgaz, the project is an important part of Europe's efforts to strengthen its energy security. Miruța says Romania is on the front line of the EU's defense, facing threats not only from drones at sea and in the air, but also from floating mines in the Black Sea. Romania, Bulgaria, and Turkey are working closely together to clear those mines, with more than 150 neutralized since the war in Ukraine started. For Romania and its NATO allies, the war is increasingly posing a threat not only to their airspace and waters, but also to critical energy infrastructure. For A News, I'm Anita Sharma in Arnhem, Netherlands.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky is calling on the US and other allies to approve the sale of Patriot interceptors after a deadly Russian missile and drone attack on Kyiv.
The strike was a combined one, and there were a lot of ballistics, cruise missiles, drones. Unfortunately, ballistics are the most difficult now to intercept. Whether the percentage of interception of cruise missiles is close to 90%, the situation with ballistic missiles is much worse. We need interceptors for Patriots. This is something only our partners can provide. On all levels, we convey to them our needs and our understanding that they have the resources to meet them.
Latvia and Lithuania are stepping up efforts to counter what they say is growing Russian hybrid threat, from arson to migrant networks. Latvia's Prime Minister says recent incidents form part of Russia's hybrid warfare against countries backing Ukraine. whilst Estonia is probing a possible Russian role in an arson attack linked to Milram Robotics. Meanwhile, Lithuania has logged about 1,900 cases of secondary migration this year, with Latvia's Operation Werewolf targeting migrant smuggling networks. Russia is facing a growing fuel crisis after a sustained Ukrainian drone campaign targeted its oil infrastructure. Petrol was available at just 28% of Russian filling stations on Thursday, with queues appearing in Moscow for the first time. Authorities have imposed fuel limits across much of the country, while major stations have capped purchases. Russia has also brought back lower-grade fuel to ease shortages, as the Kremlin faces mounting pressure over the impact on its energy supplies. Russia says it sees little prospect of progress towards a peaceful settlement of the Ukrainian conflict under Kyiv's current position. That's according to Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov. He says US envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are always welcome in Russia, but no dates are set for any visit.
At the moment, given the position of the Kyiv regime, there are no grounds for optimism regarding a peaceful settlement. The developments on the front lines are well known. The special military operation continues. We highly value the efforts of all countries that are sincerely seeking to contribute to the settlement process.
To some other news now, and heavy rain has triggered mudslides and rockfalls in Peru. As a result, dozens of vehicles and passengers have been stranded on a coastal highway in the south of the country for a fourth day. The landslides damaged parts of the Pan American Highway South, bringing traffic in both directions to a standstill. Road links between cities have been cut, with trucks, buses and cars stranded along a stretch of around 10 kilometres. Some trucks were carrying food supplies, which has started to spoil. Municipal workers are distributing food to drivers and passengers. Soldiers are also helping to clear mud from the road. Authorities have not yet said when the highway will reopen. Chile's president has visited the city of Tocopilla after floods and mudslides caused major damage. Around 60% of homes in the city were affected, and more than 1,000 people have been moved to shelters across the region. Army and Navy personnel are clearing streets of mud and debris. Volunteers are also helping with the cleanup. Authorities say there have been no deaths or missing people. However, the warning system failed to issue timely alerts as water levels in the ravines rose rapidly. Tocopilla is located on a narrow coastal strip surrounded by ravines. A landslide at a gold mine in southwestern Colombia has killed 13 workers and injured 7 others. The collapse happened on Wednesday. Authorities initially suspected an explosion, but later said mining activity destabilized the slope. Rescue teams worked through the night to recover the victims, with all those reported missing found by early Thursday. Deadly accidents are common at unlicensed mines in Colombia. Migrants left in makeshift camps in the enclave of Ceuta are being offered places in government shelters. Spanish authorities are trying to ease the pressure from last month's border crisis. It left thousands of people stranded, and local residents stepped in to help.
For the past 3 weeks, the sands of El Trampoline Beach have served as a sprawling makeshift home. But on Thursday, the encampment was peacefully cleared. Escorted by police, hundreds of migrants gathered their belongings and walked to newly opened government shelters. The voluntary transfers aim to provide basic living conditions for those who have been sleeping rough since crossing the border en masse in late July. An estimated 8,000 migrants remain in Ceuta, with the city's official resources heavily overstretched. The burden of care has often fallen on locals. In the El Príncipe neighborhood, residents transformed a basketball court into a tented camp for women and children. Supported by the Red Cross, the community has provided food, water, and mattresses. But aid workers warn this grassroots effort is unsustainable.
It would be good news for them to be sent to better places and for this camp to be taken down. This is largely being run by the Neighbourhood Association, whose members are exhausted because they have taken on a responsibility that should not fall to them.
The temporary shelters now opened by Spain's migration ministry are designed to relieve that local exhaustion. offering a combined capacity of up to 1,800 beds. But while the relocation takes hundreds off the streets, thousands more remain in limbo, waiting in the enclave for a chance to continue their journey to continental Europe.
Victims of a boat disaster in Nigeria have been buried. At least 50 people, most of them children, were killed. It's happened in the Goronyo area of Sokoto State. The bodies were taken to a local mosque ahead of the burial. Residents said the boat was carrying farmers and workers travelling to harvest rice. There are different accounts of how many people were on board. One resident said there were more than 70, while another put the number at 57. Boat accidents are common in Nigeria, especially during the rainy season. The Trump administration has sent the first group of deportees to Liberia under a deal allowing Washington to transfer up to 1,200 people to the West African country over the next year. Liberia's information minister said most of those deported are from Latin American countries, including Venezuela, Cuba and Colombia. The arrangement is part of the Trump administration's efforts to speed up deportations by sending some people to third countries. The UN Refugee Agency and migration officials are helping provide support. Washington says the deals are lawful, while critics question the treatment of deportees. We're going to go to a quick break now, and when we return, I'll discuss the key regional headlines. Don't go away.
Inside Politics delves deeply into the heart of global issues shaping our world today. Join me for your go-to source of political analysis from across the region and beyond.
Welcome to A News, unfiltered news and analysis from the region and beyond. From Washington to Beijing, Tehran to Kabul, to Tbilisi to Tashkent.
Hello, I'm Jay. That's challenges.
Today is the third.
We're with you 24/7, taking you live to the front lines of the day's biggest stories. Welcome to Gabala. One important note to fears.
I'm here.
Azerbaijan and Armenia.
Hello, we are reporting on the 8th of November.
Reporting from Paris,
Dar es Salaam, Tel Aviv,
Washington,
London,
Moscow,
Kyiv, Berlin,
Rio de Janeiro, Beijing, Bangkok, Tbilisi, Tashkent, Almaty, Kazakhstan, Port Sudan, Tehran, Islamabad, Istanbul,
Kabul for A News.
Welcome back, and thanks for joining me this morning. Let's return to the region now, and officials from former Belgian colonies and the United Nations are gathering in Baku to discuss Belgium's colonial past and calls for reparations. Representatives from Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo say the effects of that history can still be felt today.
As we know, most of our countries are still struggling with the legacies of colonization, Belgian colonialism. And now it is 100 years later, 101 years later, and this is what we are commemorating, and it's good to reflect on the role of this period, and which should inform our current relations with these former colonies.
Voilà, je suis heureux de participer
If Baku, thousands of kilometers away from the DRC, is thinking about the victims of colonization, how much more should we, the descendants of those ancestors who experienced these degrading treatments firsthand, be concerned about it? I believe participating in this initiative also means bringing this history back to the surface, a history that seems to have been suppressed by those who harmed the Congolese people. I find this extremely important, and I congratulate the organizers.
The Armenian government has approved its development programme for the next 5 years. The document includes concrete plans for signing a peace agreement with Azerbaijan, delimiting the border and developing transport links. At the same time, Yerevan plans to modernise its armed forces and strengthen its military capabilities in the coming years.
Armenia's new 5-year development programme places particular emphasis on relations with Azerbaijan. The document says work will continue towards signing and ratifying a peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan, as well as the delimitation and demarcation of the state border. It also plans to expand ties between the two countries' civil societies and business communities, as well as bilateral trade. Regional transport projects are also highlighted in the program. Armenia plans to implement the Crossroads of Peace initiative and rebuild the Gyumri-Akurik and Yeresk-Sadarak railway sections. The document also calls for greater dialogue with Azerbaijan and Turkey in the energy sector. At the same time, the Armenian government has identified the development of its armed forces as another priority for the next 5 years. The program calls for continued efforts to transition to a professional army, increase the number of military personnel, and strengthen the armed forces' supply of weapons, military equipment, and other resources. It also envisages the digital transformation of the military command and control system, aligning military education institutions with Western standards and expanding domestic military production. In foreign policy, Armenia plans to deepen its strategic partnerships with the European Union and the United States, while transforming its relationship with Russia in line with a new foreign policy context. The program also includes plans to draft a new constitution and put it to a referendum. Overall, the document shows that Armenia plans to pursue peace and regional integration with Azerbaijan while simultaneously strengthening its defense capabilities over the next 5 years.
Now, Istanbul is expected to host the next meeting of the Regional 4 foreign ministers later this month as Turkey seeks closer coordination on Middle East security. Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan has invited his Pakistani counterpart to join the talks. The group also includes Saudi Arabia and Egypt. Adam Morrow has more from Istanbul.
Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan has invited Ishak Dar, Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, to Istanbul for a possible meeting of the Regional 4 or R4 group of foreign ministers. According to Pakistan's Foreign Office, the invitation was extended in a Wednesday telephone call in which the two top diplomats also discussed joint efforts to promote regional peace and stability. Dar accepted the invitation and confirmed that he would attend the meeting, which Pakistan says is expected to take place in Istanbul later this month. Ankara, however, has yet to announce an exact date for the tentative meeting. The R4, which includes Turkey, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt, has emerged as a regular consultation mechanism on Middle Eastern security issues. The four foreign ministers last met in Amman, Jordan, on August 5th on the sidelines of a ministerial gathering focused on Jerusalem. At that meeting, they reaffirmed support for an independent Palestinian state based on pre-1967 borders, while stressing the need for enhanced diplomatic coordination to prevent further regional escalation. In June, the group held its fourth formal meeting in Cairo, where talks focused on de-escalation and efforts to achieve regional stability. The possible upcoming meeting in Istanbul would come as the four countries deepen coordination on regional security challenges, including the ongoing conflict between Iran and the United States. Fidan has described the four-country platform as an increasingly important regional mechanism. The meeting would also come shortly after Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan signed a landmark joint defense pact in Mecca, adding a key security aspect to relations between three of the four R4 members. This is Adam Morrow for A News in Istanbul, Turkey.
Well, joining us now to discuss this is Kaswa Klasra, Editor-in-Chief of the Islamabad Telegraph. Now, thank you for joining us. How important has the R4 become as a forum for regional security cooperation?
Well, thank you for having me on the show. Yeah, it is going to be a very important meeting in Istanbul later this month. And as you have rightly pointed that the invitation was extended by the foreign minister of Turkey. And let me give you the background that the landmark, the Mecca agreement that was signed between the three states, it tends to expand. And now I believe that the three countries have formally extended an invitation to Egypt as well. And remember that these were the four countries which actually come forward when it comes to discuss the Iran, United States, and also Israeli, the war as well. So these are the important Muslim countries, and this meeting that is going to be held in Istanbul is going to be very, very important and highly significant, because we know that the US is calling the shot on Iran. The situation in Middle East is highly volatile. And after the Mecca agreement was signed between three countries, a couple of attacks had happened in some portion in Saudi Arabia as well. So in the background of the situation in the Middle East and attack on some targets across Saudi Arabia, remember that the agreement states that the attack on one country will be deemed to attack on all three. So this is the background. And in this background, this meeting is going to happen there in Istanbul. It is going to be highly significant. And just a couple of days back, highly, the powerful, a delegation from Turkish militaries arrived in Islamabad. They had held some meetings here in Istanbul, in Islamabad and Rawalpindi as well. So I believe this is going to be highly significant in the background of volatile situation in Middle East, and also this meeting tends to expand. Egypt may announce to join this highly significant, important, the Mecca agreement. And if Egypt joins, according to our information, that definitely other Muslim country will follow the suit. So this is going to be a highly significant event.
Can I just go back to that? As you mentioned, Egypt is the only R4 member outside the Mecca Pact. What do you think has stopped Cairo from joining so far? And do you see Egypt joining the Mecca Pact soon?
Yes, exactly. As we have seen after the agreement signed between the three founder countries, they clearly said that any country that would join us will be welcomed. And before the signing of this Mecca agreement between three Muslims, biggest world states, including Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey, we were sure that the Egypt will be the first one to join it. And this, now we, the people and analysts, and also our sources are anticipating that the highly, the significant Muslim country, that is Egypt, is going to join this as well. And let me tell you that ever since this Mecca agreement was signed, it is a trio, but we have never seen any foreign minister to pronounce it as a trio. It was actually R4, regional 4, biggest, the Muslim powers of the region was pronounced. And I am sure that Egypt is going to join it to make it formally R4, and other Muslim countries may join it. And one question that is really important to ponder is, Egypt has thousands of years of history. It is a significant, it is a militarily and also politically, sound country in the Middle East, which has bordered with important countries. Joining of the Egypt to this Makkah agreement will make this bloc very highly important and significant, and others may follow the suit. And I believe in the background of the volatile situation in Middle East and also in Asia as well, I think this regional bloc, this powerful bloc, is going to play highly significant role, not only in Middle East, but also in the Asia as well. And I believe that OIC's country, the rest of the Muslim countries, OIC, will soon join this suit. And also it is, I will not be wrong if I say this is going to be a Muslim NATO, but this is going to be highly significant development in Istanbul later this month.
And the meeting itself, let's focus in on that a bit more. What do you think Turkey is hoping to achieve from this upcoming meeting?
Sorry?
What do you think Turkey is hoping to achieve from this upcoming meeting?
Well, I think there's some disturbance in the signal as well. I could not hear you clearly.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Please.
What is Turkey hoping to achieve from this meeting?
Well, Turkey for a long time, Turkey has been, presenting itself as the leader of the Muslim, the countries, and there is no doubt that Turkey's army is one of the most powerful when we talk about the armies across the Muslim world as well, in air force and also in artillery and in modern warfare. They are the leader. And Turkey wants to be, I think, lead the Muslim bloc, and Turkey has all the ingredients. At one side, it has its army has been getting the state-of-the-art training from the NATO countries as well. It has developed great relationship with the Trump administration as well. It has great relationship with the Pakistan as well. So I believe the volatile situation in the Middle East has given a chance to Turkey to practically lead the Muslim world on a NATO style as well. And the Middle East volatile situation, as they say, blessing in disguise, it provided a chance to the President Erdogan as well. I think Turkey wants to lead the Muslim world, and also it has been aspiring for a long time. Middle East situation gave a very powerful and legitimate reason to Turkey's leadership, and this is the only thing. And other thing, Turkey has been at various international relations, various international forums. It has been leading the Muslim world as well, in OSCE, in NATO, in the United Nations as well. So I think by gathering of powerful countries, including Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, I think Turkey's dream to lead the Muslim world is finally materializing, and this is the only thing that I believe that Turkey can achieve by inviting all the Muslim world to join its forum as well. So,
and you mentioned tensions in the Middle East. Then, with tensions between Turkey and Israel over Syria, could the R4 help support efforts regarding Syria to prevent further escalation there?
Well, yes, that's a very good question. Turkey has strong stakes in Syria, and it has been challenging, the Israeli influence over there since the change in power in Syria as well. I don't think that there can be a tipping point between Israeli and the Turkey as well. But yes, that is a powerful factor. Turkey's tussle with Israel in Egypt and in the Kurdistan as well. I think this could be a very powerful factor that Turkey is developing its great relationship with all the Muslim countries as well. And in case if it develops great relationship with Pakistan, Egypt, and also with the Saudi Arabia, that it has as well already, I think it will give more power to Turkish President and he to come in a great position to openly challenge Israel and the forces back of Israel in Pakistan, also in Syria as well. So I think this is a very powerful point that by the support of Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and other Muslim countries, Turkey will be in a position to challenge like Israel, and not going to happen only in Syria. It will expand in the neighbor countries, as he told you earlier, that with the support of these powerful Muslim countries, and new going to happen, going to build very soon. Turkey is at front.
It's all very interesting. We appear to be losing you slightly. I think there's some signal issues, so we're going to leave it there, but it's been great to have you on the programme and for you providing all of that analysis.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Kyrgyzstan, China and Russia are now Georgia's leading export markets according to the latest trade figures. The data also points to Tbilisi's growing importance along the Middle Corridor. Nini Nikolaishvili reports.
The headline number: Kyrgyzstan is now Georgia's largest single export market at $521 million, ahead of China and Russia. That's not random. It reflects the Middle Corridor, the route moving goods from Central Asia and China through Georgia and the South Caucasus toward Europe, bypassing both Russia and Iran. As global trade reroutes around sanctions and instability, Georgia is positioning itself as a transit and re-export hub. And these expert figures suggest that strategy is gaining real traction. But the same data holds a harder story. Russia is Georgia's third largest export destination and second largest trading partner overall, with turnover of $1.8 billion. That's substantial economic cooperation with a country Georgia has had no formal diplomatic ties with since 2008. And it comes as Tbilisi's relationship with the EU and US remains strained over democratic backsliding concerns and Georgia's own geopolitical alignment. Beyond partners, overall trade turnover climbed to $15.5 billion, up 7.5%, driven largely by a 21.6% jump in exports. Cars and oil products dominate trade in both directions. Together, the figures paint a picture of a country economically pulled in multiple directions at once, chasing Middle Corridor opportunity while staying commercially close to Russia. The trade numbers, in that sense, tell a foreign policy story as much as an economic one. Nini Nikolaishvili, Tbilisi, A-News.
Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan are setting a new trade target of $1 billion by 2030, while working on steps to attract more investment and expand business cooperation. Seva Rajapova reports from Tashkent.
Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan are preparing a program aimed at increasing bilateral trade to $1 billion by 2030. The target was discussed during a meeting between Uzbekistan's Investment, Industry and Trade Minister Laziz Kudvatov and Azerbaijan's ambassador to Uzbekistan Rashad Mamadov. Trade between the two countries reached $307 million in 2025. Up nearly 15% from the previous year. In the first half of 2026, turnover rose by more than 30% year-on-year, reaching $170 million. The growth has been driven by increasingly diversified trade, ranging from food products and manufactured goods to vehicles, machinery and industrial materials. Azerbaijan also plays an important role as a transport link, connecting Uzbekistan with the South Caucasus and European markets through the Caspian Sea. The sides are now preparing a roadmap to implement existing agreements and expand trade and investment cooperation. They are also looking to strengthen direct links between businesses and regions in both countries. With trade already showing strong growth, Tashkent and Baku are now seeking to turn this momentum into long-term economic cooperation and reach the $1 billion trade target by 2030. Cyril Vajap reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan A News.
And finally this morning, the countdown to Kazakhstan's parliamentary election is entering its final stage, with parties stepping up their efforts to win votes. Campaigning will end ahead of Sunday's poll. Fariza Kalimurzina has more from Almaty.
Kazakhstan is heading into a parliamentary election that will look very different from previous votes. The election on August 23rd will be the first held under the country's new constitution, approved in a referendum in March and in force since July 1st. The parliamentary system has changed significantly. The former two-chamber parliament made up of the Senate and the Majlis has been replaced by a unicameral parliament known as the Kurultai with 145 seats. For voters, the key change is how those seats will be filled. All members will now be elected through party lists with no single-member districts. And under this new system, 7 parties are contesting the election. Together, they have nominated 545 candidates, including 172 women. The average age is just over 45. Among them, the main newcomer is Adilet. It was registered in June, becoming the first new party to secure registration in 3 years. But the biggest political development came when Amanat, formerly Nurotan, and the country's dominant political force for decades, merged with Adilet. And it's not only the party landscape that is changing. The new parliamentary structure also means there will be one speaker instead of 2, a position likely to carry greater influence. The election will be observed by 777 international monitors from 42 countries and 13 international organizations. And in just 3 days, voters will cast their ballots for one of 7 parties or choose the against all option. The vote will determine the first composition of Kazakhstan's new Kurultai. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A News.
That's all we've got time for this morning. From all of us here in the studio, thank you very much for watching and have a wonderful start to your day. See you soon.